Hello and welcome back to the SU Leadership Race debates. We're back here now with the VP Education debates. Unfortunately, we only have one candidate. The other candidate unfortunately couldn't make it this evening as she's injured her back. So we'll be reading out a statement on her behalf I think we'll start off with that. Because then there won't really be much debate between people. So it's just going to be you and me, Josh.
Yay.
Just you and me, just how I always wanted it. So if you are coming to us from the previous live stream, then welcome back. If you're just joining us new, hello, I'm Tom. If you want to send in any questions, just pop them on the comments section in the Facebook live feed, or you can send them to us via Twitter at Rebel Essex. So I think we'll start off. As usual, it's an opening statement from the candidates, a question from myself about the statement, a question from the other candidates about the statement. I'm not sure how that's going to work. Then there'll be a prepared question, a question from me about that answer, and then questions from the other candidates. So I shall read out the statement submitted by... Do I have to time myself? No. Is that how this works in the interest of fairness?
We'll waive it.
We'll waive it?
Yeah,
Thank you for
ahead.
being so gracious. So I will read out a statement on behalf of Letitia. And the statement is, the university offers a rigorous and challenging college experience. Usually papers and projects are due at the end of our breaks. I would like to see a 7 days extension to the deadline, as well as the time should be adjusted to midnight. I believe that this allows students to enjoy their break, yet still knowing they have work to do. It is a lot to be away from home for international students as well as locally. Why vote for me? I realise that many of you do not know me, and I am a postgraduate student studying sociology. I have a passion for people, and I am excited at the opportunity to meet new people. I have very strong skills for the position in terms of customer service, understanding the mission, and being able to foster communications between students and staff. I'm a public servant looking to serve you in the capacity to fulfil your college experience. I will rally and defend your interests, and I will have an open eye of communication for you to speak with me. Please vote for me. I will not let you down. So that is a statement from Letitia. Of course, we can't offer any questions to her regarding that. And I feel like that I think that's all the material we've been given from her, sadly. So we'll move straight on to you, I suppose. So would you like to start us off with an opening statement?
Yeah, sure. Why not? So I'm Josh. I'm currently the VP Education of the Students' Union, and I'm standing for re-election to be VP Education for another year. So far this year, we've already achieved some amazing things in terms of education at Essex, from getting the printing costs cut down to scrapping library fines altogether, and that was a joint effort from the VP Education, the Students' Union, the students and the university all working in collaboration to prove that really when we come together we can actually make a difference and we can actually make a change very quickly. I would love to do some more of this, and I'd love to make some even bigger changes over another year as your VP Education. So I'm running on 4 main points, and they're all on my posters which will be going up. So more useful spaces for students, employability for all, not just the young home UK undergraduate students, an equal liberated education that caters to the diversity of our student body, and more accountability and representation of the executive officers, because being an officer for the year, I've seen that officers are regularly not questioned by the student body, and they should be.
Okay, and that's all the time you've got. Sorry about that. So does anybody... Oh. If I could put some questions to you then about your opening statement and about your manifesto in general.
Of course.
So what do you have planned for more useful spaces for students? And, well, you've been here a year already, so why hasn't that happened already?
So one of the things that I've seen in the last 6 months, and one of the things that I'm still collecting feedback on from students, is students are confused and staff at the university are confused about what study space has what kind of rules around it. So is the library supposed to be a silent space? Is parts of the reading room supposed to be silent, or are they for group work? Is the ground floor of the Silbrad silent, quiet, or group? Nobody actually knows because these rules haven't been set. So I'm planning at the moment to reach out to students and find out this information, collate all of this information to make sure that it's what students want, and then push to university. But it takes time and it will take longer than I have left in office, and that's why I need another year.
Okay, so you want students to re-elect you because you haven't quite finished what you need to do?
Not
or-
quite. That
okay.
wasn't on my manifesto for this year. Everything that was on my manifesto for this year will be done within my year in office because that's part of the job. And this was an issue that was highlighted to me since October. So by the time I was already 3 months into the role, and so being it highlighted 3 months in, likelihood it's going to take a year. So it's going to take 3 months after the end to get finished.
Okay. Is there not? Does it have to be you who continues these projects if they've started up, or can it not be, like, look at the case of the Silbrad, for instance, that was conceived, I know the creative studios that we work out of with Rebel was conceived about 6 years ago, which goes back many different VP services and communications. The baton was just passed. Does it have to be you?
I think there's two key elements to take out of that. Number one is the element that I have built these relationships with the university staff already, having been here for 6 months, and so I can get on with the job straight away from the off. I think the second element is consistency, and I think you've seen that from the Silbrad Centre, that parts of the Silbrad Centre are not fit for student use because there's been a change in leadership and a change in sabbatical. And so actually, if there had been consistency in leadership, the space would probably be a lot more fit, and I wouldn't have to run on this manifesto pledge. Okay,
and another manifesto pledge, then sticking with the Silbrad, is changing the layout and structure of the Silbrad Student Centre. What kind of plans do you have for that? I assume you're not going to be putting on a hard hat and a high vis jacket.
No, I don't think that I'm going to get any structural changes done. I don't think I can. I don't think I've got the building experience.
Put
to
a
do
conservatory on the back, maybe.
Yeah, you know,
adds a bit of value.
I have only got a law degree apparently, so you know, apparently that doesn't give me the experience to build. But no, I think some of my plans, for example, is I know that the top floor is built to be a quiet and a silent space with individual study pods, but then they've stuck sofas at the very entrance to it, which gives off the appeal that it's more of a chill space and for students to have parties. And I've seen pizza parties going on up there during exam time, which obviously isn't helpful to students that want to revise. Also on the ground floor, you've got the group pods, which are fantastic for group work and for small projects. And then you've got the computer kind of round table things where students really want to work quite quietly. So it's about looking at what's currently in the spaces, finding out what students want from the spaces, and then arranging the furniture and the layout of the room to what the students want.
Okay. And coming back now then to some of the successes you've had over the year and things you want to continue into the next year. Obviously, one of the things that you're campaigning on within your manifesto is that you've been successful. You feel like you've been successful this year, and you feel like that is one of the things that proves to students that they should re-elect you. With things like, for instance, the library fees, am I correct in understanding that things like that were actually in the pipeline already before you entered office?
So I started in July, and within my first month, the library met with me and said this was what they were planning to do, and they'd met with OSSE on it, but they said that there was a halt on it because the feedback that OSSE had got from students, that's my predecessor for anyone who's new to the university, and the feedback that he'd collected from the students were actually against the new library system. So from talking to students in my role since I started, I got evidence of the opposite. And so I then went back to the library and said, actually, no, I think that this is more current evidence. This is what should be going with. So in terms of your point, it's quite right that there were plans to make changes. They were halted by student feedback, and then they were implemented with my further feedback. But I think the key thing to take from the library is that when it came to around December time and students voiced concerns with the vacation period and the recall system, that was something that was not in the pipeline. And that's something that within 4 weeks of students reaching out on Facebook, reaching out to me personally, that's been changed and extended as of yesterday.
Okay, Doc. I'd like to bring you now as well to another point in your manifesto about introducing Union Council.
Yes.
So obviously Union Council was a thing that existed
Very many years ago.
Very, very many years ago. And then there was the SRF, the Student Representative Forum, and now we have the all student meetings. So why is it that you think that, firstly, that it's the role of the VP Education to implement democratic changes? And why do you think it should go back to being the Union Council?
So at the moment, what I'm seeing as SRF having been replaced with was the question time, as opposed to more of the all student meetings as a sort of starting point. Take them as sort of two separate points then, if you like. Why is it the role of VP Education? It's the role of all sabbatical officers to make sure that they are held accountable by students. It's the role of all of us to make sure that we're in touch with students, in touch with student issues, and that if we do something that students don't like, they have the platform and the ability to hold us to it. We don't have a democracy officer. We did used to have a representation part-time officer, but that passed. That was made defunct with a referendum a couple of years ago before I was in office. And so actually there is not a member of the executive committee that has been assigned the role of furthering democracy and union development within the union. Now I'm currently looking into that as a side project separately in my current role, and that's not up for debate today. But the issue at hand is that there is no one member of the sabbatical or indeed the executive team dealing with union development and democracy, and there are a lot of unions that are. And so if I feel that I can bring something to improve the democracy of the union, then it's my job to do that.
And so what's wrong with the current system?
The current system, I feel in my last 6 months that I have not been scrutinised by students. I have done my best to do what I believe and what students have told me is right for students, but officers do and can get it wrong. And I feel that there needs to be a platform for students to say, actually, no, you got that wrong and we'd like to hold you to account to it. And I feel like that has been lacking this year so far. So exec to officer question times have had very low turnout. The student ideas have not had the reach that we initially anticipated that they would have. But the all-student meeting, which was a policy scrutiny body, it made no actual decision, but it was a chance for students to debate. That had a good turnout. And so that set in motion some thoughts in my head around actually, this is what students want. Students want a place to debate changes to the union, not necessarily make the policy changes that SRF used to have. And so this union council will be a policy scrutiny body as a chance, as a pre-chance before the SU idea, to scrutinise an idea in front of students, in front of the executive committee, and in front of departmental reps, which is also mentioned a couple of points above that, before, and it kind of encourages discussion before the idea goes onto the SU Ideas website, so that students are more informed of both sides of the argument and therefore can make more informed choices and engage a little bit more with the work of the exec.
But is it not a case then that actually students just simply choosing not to engage? Because as you know, with things like the SRF, what you had was repeatedly the same people coming constantly month after month. It was the same people, it was never different students, whereas with the current system with student ideas, we've had people engage, albeit online, but engage with student union democracy who wouldn't have before.
And exactly, so student ideas will not be changing in its current format. This is adding an extra step of face-to-face democracy alongside the student ideas. Student ideas has much more of a reach than SRF, you're quite right. SRF had the same turnout of between 40 and 60 people, the same 40 and 60 people, and they were making policy-making decisions. This will be a group of council that are, there will be a membership of council that will be expected to come to each meeting. It will also be open to all students, and this will be a chance to debate the policy before it then goes to student ideas. So the policy will be open to the entire student body as it is currently. There will just be a healthy and open debate which encourages students to think about what is going on in their union and encourage students to get involved before that online platform is utilised.
But there will always be the online platform utilised.
There will always be the online platform. In the same way, there will always be students that choose not to engage with democracy. But I think part of introducing a face-to-face debate gives students the opportunity to give it a chance and see if they're interested in it, as opposed to simply going, my only way at the moment is question time. I don't really have a question, so I'm not going to go.
Okay, so we've got a question on the live feed from Nikolai again, who says, talking about Silbrad, do you have any plans to improve the information hub as it's working quite slow?
This, I presume, is the information hub on the first floor. It's not in my manifesto, I won't lie. It's not something that I've considered. It's not something that's been raised to any of the sabbatical team presently. I think the student information team falls under many of our remits. As an initial point, it falls under my role. It also falls under the role of Vice President Welfare because of the student support element that comes out of the student information team. I think that if there is an issue there that students are finding with the student information team, then that is something that we should be taking forward, and I'd welcome any actual messages or emails to say that that's a problem, and I can happily have that discussion with the manager of the student information team.
And Sarah has also posted a question saying, what are your actions on the NSS 2017, so that's the National Student Survey 2017. How are you making sure students know what the various backgrounds to this survey are?
Right, so in terms of the National Student Survey, firstly, thank you for the question, Sarah. I know that this came up in executive. The NSS is the National Student Survey that all final year undergraduate students are asked to fill out. The university uses it as a key benchmark for itself against other universities, and the Students' Union also uses it as a benchmark against other students' unions. It's common knowledge to those involved in national student politics that there is a national movement to boycott the National Student Survey. As a students' union, we are not mandated to follow any national level student policy unless our students decide that that is something that they would like to do. So, for example, when there was the national demonstration in November, we weren't mandated to get involved with it. Students put through a student idea that we should support it. That vote passed. We supported it. We provided a coach and we provided transport for any student.
What's the boycott for?
The boycott is in regards to the TEF, which... Do we have time for me to explain the
We
basics?
don't have time now.
I'll try. So the Teaching Excellence Framework is a piece of government legislation coming in that will allow universities to be graded gold, silver or bronze and allow themselves to increase their fees in line with inflation depending on the rating that they get.
And that is happening at
And
this
that is
university.
happening, and the University of Essex have chosen to take part in the TEF because it is not a compulsory thing. Of the 350 institutions that were eligible to take part, 299 did. So the very majority did take part in the TEF,
And I
and
assume
the
you
NSS is a key metric of the TEF.
You were involved in discussions to do with TEF?
It is standard practice across most universities that the VP Education sits on the TEF working group. So I sat on the TEF working group, yes, because as a students' union, our stance is that we oppose the TEF and we oppose the metrics that the TEF used to measure performance of a university. But as a students' union, we recognise that we need to engage with the university in order to have a voice, and therefore it's better to be in that room scrutinising the work of the university than not be in that room at all.
And your scrutiny, do you feel like it had any impact?
The university had decided to take part in the TEF long before we'd started our officer role. I feel my opinion as a member of that working group was valued more than some of the other members of that group because I was the main student representation in that room. In terms of having influence, I mean, the main thing that we have taken forward from this, and this was a university decision, but as a students' union, we welcomed it. The university has the ability to increase its fees for all home students, so in course as well. The university here made the decision to only increase the fees for new students starting 17, as opposed to those returning into year 2 or year 3.
But isn't it true that it's a maximum? The increase that TEF allows is a maximum.
The increase that TEF allows for 2017 is an increase of £250, so taking maximum to 9,250. But that was allowed by the government to come in for first years and second, third, fourth years home students. The university here made the decision that it would be unfair to increase fees for students who signed up to a £9,000 deal, and so therefore are only changing the fees for new students that are coming in. And that was found out after I had a urgent meeting with the Vice Chancellor and the Registrar, in which I said to the Vice Chancellor we had to have a conversation around the TEF, or the Students' Union was going to sign an open letter that went to the Guardian calling on Vice Chancellors to publicly speak about the TEF.
Okay. Are there any questions from the audience?
Lots of policy discussion.
It's a lot of
Should
policy.
we talk about something that isn't policy?
Well, I think what it all boils down to then is, in that room, do you feel that you represented students fully and that you could do that in the next year if you're re-elected?
I tried my absolute hardest to represent students in that room. I attended every meeting of the TEF working group for start. The TEF working group then set up a smaller group of only 4 members of staff whose job was to go through the entire TEF application, scrutinise every word, every line, and make sure that it was honest and truthful and an honest representation of the university. And I was one of the 4 people in that very small room. So I read through the application that we made countless times, and where there were university staff that decided they might like to make the percentages look nicer than raw numbers, I made sure that actually the representation that was given was honest and truthful of the university.
Okay, and we do have one audience question. Would you like to go ahead?
Oh, yay. Hi, Jack.
Basically, do you think that subject level TEF will devalue some Essex students' degrees?
Wow, okay. I'll have to give a little bit of background again. So the TEF tiniest bit. TEF next year is going from institutional level to subject level. Subjects haven't been defined. We don't know what a subject is. In terms of will subject level TEF devalue some students' degrees? Quite possibly. Work is beginning now to look at how subject level TEF might work at Essex and how that might make departments look good and how that also might make departments look bad. I think it's really key that VP Education is in that room at all times to make sure that where it is being highlighted that departments might start looking bad under TEF, the university takes the stance of how can we make this look better by investing and by improving the department rather than by changing the statistics or omitting certain bits of data.
Okay, and We haven't given you a prepared question yet, so very quickly, within a minute, if you could.
We've got another student question as well.
Do we? I'm afraid we don't have any more time for any more audience questions. We're running out of time. So, so what are you going to do about deadline scheduling? Although I do think you did touch upon it a little bit.
Deadline scheduling is an issue that students have flagged to me this year. It comes out of the university's work around varying forms of assessment. So moving away from standard essays, coursework and exams, moving to more presentations and more varied forms of assessment. I think one of the key tools to utilise here is the course reps, of which I've utilised them quite a lot so far this year. Students feed into course reps and course reps feed into each other, that there are deadlines that are clashing. I've heard students that have had 14,000 words all due within the same week. And if that information gets fed in through course reps or directly to me, then we have the ability to take that to the heads of department, to the directors of education and say, this is unacceptable. This is an unacceptable workload for students. You wouldn't expect your staff to work to this amount, so you can't expect your students to work to this amount. But I think one of the key things that I need to stress with this is that this can only be done if students alert the course reps and alert me to the issue. Because as a sabbatical team, students have to understand that we don't have lectures anymore. We don't have deadlines like students do. And so I think actually one of the key things
Josh,
here
I'm
is
afraid that's you.
we can deal with it if you talk to us.
Okay, right, thank you very much. So that wraps up this set of the leadership debates. We've had the VP Education, we've had the VP Services and Comms and the VP International debates. I hope you've all enjoyed watching. This has been brought to you by Rebel, the student media wing of the Students' Union. If you'd like to get involved, head to rebelessex.com, sign up for free as a member. You can utilise all this kind of equipment and get involved in projects like this, just like some of us in this room have done. So thank you very much for watching, and good night.